I definitely feel called to Africa. I've always felt like Africa was my home. I always felt connected. The only question was how to get here. So my minor was in African Studies, and I actually went to school here. I worked in the TRC, Truth and Reconciliation Commission in South Africa. My first time in Africa, I think I was 18, and we were working in Chirezi refugee camp in Chirezi, Zimbabwe, with Mozambican refugees. Hey, welcome to my home. I'm Toddre. Come on in. Karibu, karibu. Listen, before you go anywhere, I want to point out this new piece that I had custom made with Bawuli fabric from West Africa. And then we've got this wonderful raffia mirror from Uganda. And then I love this piece that Michael Soy gave to me. He is a famous Kenyan artist, and he gifted this to me on my birthday. All right, so we're back in West Africa, where this is actually, I was told it's a Yoruba belt, but I just love the colors and the beading. Come on into the living space. So I love an open floor plan. This was obviously supposed to be the dining room. This was the living room. I was like, you know what, let's not section it off. Let's keep it open. So this piece right here was handmade a boutique in Mozambique. And then I had all the pillows custom made. I do a lot of shopping at the wholesale market. So Marido Market is where this stuff came from. And I just love like floor seating. You know, when kids come in here, it's hard for them not to jump on the furniture. And then for Kenyans who know, this table was made in Gikomba. I really wanted something that would act as a dining room table that would be low enough, but also act as storage. So I'm able to keep, you know, my books, etc. here. And we sit comfortably. Now, my dad has a problem. Some people do have a problem sitting so low to the ground, but then, you know, this will be their chair. My dad comes, he'll sit, and he'll eat at this table. So I had the curtains custom made in Eastleigh, and I just love that in Nairobi you can afford to have things custom made for your house. It was a shock though when I first got a flat here, because in the States, or at least in the state of California, the drapes, the lampshades, there's so many things that are already supplied in the apartment, like the refrigerator, the stove, etc. So when you rent in Nairobi, it's just bare bones unless you're getting a furnished apartment. So I love my curtains. I had to fight for these curtains. So if you go to Eastleigh, it's now known as a Somali neighborhood. It wasn't always a Somali neighborhood, but they will do curtains for you that day if you go early enough. And they normally just do this little, we'll just say solid fabric, very simple, understated fabric. But I was like, no, I want to do the kitenge at the top and then something else at the bottom. And they laughed at me. You want what? So they did it for me, and as they were making the curtains, other Kenyan women was like, wait, where is this fabric? So I ended up telling their other customers where to go to get the fabric. Here we have another Yoruba belt. And then my plants, you know, they're part of the personality too. That's Brooklyn, and this is Bronx. So my girlfriend who lives in Tanzania, she's from Brooklyn, and she house sat for me and she named them. Now this piece right here we put on plexiglass. This was to commemorate my 47th birthday, and we had an all-women's photo shoot. We had my girlfriend Bella, who did the body painting. She also does paint sips in Kampala. And then my girlfriend Akuzike, who's an aspiring photographer, she did the shots. And then my other girlfriend loaned her backyard. So it was crazy just being nude in her backyard doing this photo shoot, but it was fun. Okay, so I was nomadic for a long time, and it just started to wear on me, staying in apartments that somebody else had decorated. And after a while, I just wanted to nest, and I wanted to create a space that was just for me. Previously, I was married, and when you're married, you have to compromise. That's that person's style versus your style. Here was just me, so I could have as much fun with the colors and the textures as I wanted. I love hammocks. I love swinging chairs. And so I found this young Kenyan artist on Facebook Marketplace, and she made these for me, installed them. And then these are Juba hats from the West African market. They're traditionally worn in ceremony. However, in the Western world, we use them for decoration. And then we have to talk about another Michael Soy piece. Michael Soy, as I said before, is a famous Kenyan artist, and his work is typically a commentary about sex work in Kenya. So this is one of the more tame pieces. So I'm blessed to have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and we have a guest room, which I was actually using as an office space. But then, it was an emergency. I had to get my mom here. She wasn't doing very well. So I love the fact that she's here with me. So we had to turn this into a bedroom really quickly. I actually love this artist here. I believe her name is Atieno, but she's a digital artist, and she makes art that represents us. Then I've got these 2 pieces here from the college homie Cracker Radford, and I think he was inspired by some of my Instagram posts, and he made these 2 pieces and then sent them to me. I forgot to mention that this place was completed in '76. So if you're seeing the exposed hardwood, the hardwood floors, that's because this is a really old building, and I love it. Okay, so here's the bedroom. This is where none of the action happens. You see, I got my books here. This is another piece for my birthday shoot. I love this bed. I also had this one made on Red Hill Road is where I found the carpenters. That was like a whole drama. But anyway, it's a sturdy bed. It's one that I'll have for many years to come. Again, custom curtains. And I have a fashion background, so I got a lot of stuff from designers that I've worked with, from colleagues that have owned boutiques. So I really just didn't have enough storage. So we made this here with my clothing, all the extra stuff that wouldn't fit in those other 2 rooms. And then I got my girls. You see my girls? I cut my hair off, and sometimes I miss my hair. And I was like, you know what? I don't have to miss my hair. I can invest in some wigs. So we got some Afro wigs here. And then we have another en-suite bathroom. So when I have guests, they have their own bathroom, and I love that. One of the things that I love about the flats in Kenya is they all seem to come with these built-in wardrobes. Whereas where I'm from in the States, they're more so walk-in closets. Karibu kitchen. So you can see this kitchen has been in existence for decades. There's a part of me that really wants to take the cabinets, have them sanded down and repainted, paint the ceilings. We'll see. You know, it's a rental, so I've been saying I don't want to invest so much, but I've been here already for so long, so I probably should. But I love my little accoutrements that we've gotten from Warito Market. We've got this woven piece from Uganda. Then we've got some from Ghana, your home country. And then, of course, we've got these bags up here from Kenya. So it was a trip, you know, moving here, because I was like, dang, I got to buy everything myself. the stove, the refrigerator, etc. But it worked out. What's another thing I wanted to say? How did I end up here? Because as far as I know, I think I'm the only American. We do have other African diplomats that live here. And I think there's also a Nigerian woman that lives here. My homegirl, who's Ugandan, she lived on the top floor. And when I came to visit Nairobi, I stayed with her. So I fell in love with the neighborhood because it's so quiet. It's like an oasis in the city. And it's very close to the Arboretum. And it's in between the State House as well as the CBD. And I knew that when I got an apartment, I wanted to be walking distance from the Arboretum because that's like my sanctuary in the city. And I looked around, I saw a number of places, and I ended up right back here. So a lot of people don't know that I've been coming to Africa since I was 18. So I was telling you that I went to school at the University of Ghana. So that would have been my second experience in Africa, first starting in Zimbabwe and then University of Ghana, and then it just evolved from there. So I always thought that I would be living in Africa. In fact, when I visited Cape Coast for the first time, I was like, this is where I'll retire. And then I looked up one day and it was like, you're not living your dream. You're not in Africa. You are working in California. And so I just decided, let's change that. And that's how I ended up in East Africa. For me, it was a lifestyle change.
Hey Web Nation family, quick question for you. If you're watching this, chances are you've been thinking about what it could take to actually relocate to Africa. Maybe to South Africa, Ghana, Kenya, or beyond. If this is you, I want to personally invite you to join the Web Nation waitlist. This is your early access to our relocation step-by-step course and even our guided tours across Africa. By joining, you'll be the first to know when new guides drop for your country of choice, and you will unlock early bird discount plus exclusive bonuses. And when we launch our tours to South Africa and Zanzibar, waitlist members get first steps before seats sells out. If you are serious about relocating, starting a business, or just experiencing Africa in a whole new way, scan the QR code on your screen if you are watching on TV, or click the link below to join the Web Nation waitlist today. Now, I can't wait to see you inside. Let's get back into the video.
I was literally working at a tech startup in Santa Monica, California, and I was working as an online stylist. And I hadn't even been at the job that long and got laid off. I mean, and they laid us off like right before Thanksgiving, Christmas. It was crazy. So at that point, I was like half-assed looking for work. And then it just dawned on me, Toddre, you don't want to be here anyway. So I had the previous year taken a trip to Zanzibar and absolutely loved it. And you know, whenever you go someplace fabulous, you're always trying to figure out how to make it your everyday life. And so I had tried a couple of things and it didn't work out. And this was like my opportunity. So I saw it as my opportunity to just sell everything and move to Zanzibar. And it wasn't until I was featured on a show called African Americans Making Their Mark Abroad, where the question was, did racism drive you away from the U.S.? Did it compel you to leave the U.S.? And my first response was, well, no. And then I thought more and more about it, and I realized, like, wow, if not for institutional racism, I would have been at a different point in my career. I probably would have accumulated more wealth, more property, and I probably would have been so comfortable that I wouldn't have been looking outside of the US. And so ultimately, after contemplation, I was like, actually, it was racism that led me to Zanzibar. So I lived in Zanzibar for about a year, and I would say for the first 6 to 8 months, I spent just decompressing from the US. And I had a web series that I was producing that was about international travel and fashion. And it just wasn't conducive for me to produce that web series and be living on this tiny archipelago in the Indian Ocean as far as travel ease, etc. And I did want to wear, regular clothes. And at a certain point in time, I wanted to speak English. So I took a trip to Uganda and loved it, and found a videographer that saw my vision, and we ended up working together. So 2 to 4 months in Uganda actually turned into 2 years in Uganda. Then we had an opportunity to shoot a designer here in Nairobi. So we traveled to Nairobi, and I didn't know anyone except for this designer. And I was not impressed with Nairobi because I didn't have anybody to show me around. And I came back maybe a year later, and by then I knew someone here, and she showed me her Nairobi. Like, we were doing yoga and Kura Forest. She took me to her favorite restaurants. And then there's this wonderful neighborhood, and I was like, wait, hold up. I think I want to stay. So I literally didn't even go back to Uganda. I had my things shipped from Uganda, and for the first time, I had my things shipped from the US and decided to make Nairobi my home. How much does it cost to live comfortably in Kenya as an African American immigrant or expat? I'm going to talk about Nairobi, because Nairobi is a whole nother situation from the rest of Kenya. We're talking about the capital city. So the capital city is going to be a bit more expensive. Depending on your lifestyle, I would say comfortably 1,000 USD. However, within that, you probably won't be traveling much. And if you do, it will be by bus. Now, for me, I also care for my mother. So with us combined, I would say that our average expenses might be about 2,000 to maybe 3,000 per month. And that really just depends on what's going on in our lives, what's going on with her health-wise. My first impression of Kenya, I wasn't very impressed. I was not impressed. First of all, I took the bus from Kampala, and I was in town, like where all these buses are, and it's dirty and it's chaotic. And then we were staying in Karen. I can't even tell you where in Karen we were staying, but it just didn't seem like walkable that I was looking for. Like, it wasn't giving me city life. I had no idea that Karen, even though it's a part of Nairobi, it's really like suburban and very residential. And then we were also shooting in Karen, and I was just looking around. I was like, So my first impression was not a good one. But like I said, when I came back a second time, I actually knew someone who was able to take me to different parts of Nairobi where I was actually living here and not like a tourist. I really loved it. The reason why I chose Nairobi over Zanzibar or Arusha or even Kampala or Ghana or South Africa, what I love about Nairobi is its proximity to the ocean. Being a Cali girl, I miss the ocean living in Kampala. Kampala, or Uganda's landlocked. The other thing that I loved about Nairobi is its urban green spaces. The Arboretum is walking distance from me. The Karua Forest is not far from me. Like, it's a very green space. In Kampala, when I wanted to decompress from the city, there was no place for me to go in the city to just relax and be amongst nature. For people who live in big compounds and they have like a nice garden, that's great. But for me, I was staying in different Airbnbs in the city and there wasn't much of a garden. So I would literally have to go to the next city over to access nature. It's boring. I wish I could say like, there's so much going on. I work from home. My clients are American. And so I typically spend a lot of time in the house. I'm introverted. I like being in the house. Now, I do go out from time to time. So what did we do recently? Like, there's different private events that I'll go to, house music events, concerts. I love going out to eat. As you can see, I'm auntie status. So, I don't really be in the streets like that unless it's a special occasion. Now we have what we're calling Nairobi winter, which a lot of people are shocked. But it's pretty cold. I would say 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and then in the mornings. And then it might get to like 72, 73 degrees Fahrenheit in the afternoon. So a 20-degree difference. And then it'll be like 10 degrees colder in your house. With all that being said, I try to move with the seasons. So I'm not getting up super early like I normally would when it's hot outside. So when the sun comes out at, let's say, like 10, 11, that's when I'm waking up, getting out of the bed. I'm taking my time, doing my meditations, making my own breakfast, getting my supplements in, and then I'll settle down to work. I have time to slow down. I have time to be with myself. I have time to get with my girlfriends. When I lived in Los Angeles, we would make dates maybe a month to 2 months in advance just to like catch up with your girls. And here in Nairobi, I would say, same week we can get together. Nairobi's faster than Kampala. In Kampala, we would get together same day. So I love that I have that time. The other thing that I love about living in Nairobi specifically is access to fresh food. It's not as corrupted. The food chain is not as corrupted as it is in the US. So I love that I'm able to lead a healthier lifestyle. The other thing, for those of you that are interested in fitness, is that when you get your gym membership, the fitness trainer is included in that gym membership. And in Nairobi, the gym memberships are relatively inexpensive, comparatively speaking. I do work remotely, so most of my clients are in the US. One of the things that I do are art tours, fashion tours, real estate tours. So people are usually like, well, I want to spend time with you. I want to support your business. They may not be interested in fashion or art. I'm like, listen, we do real estate tours. So I usually get people that will come on my art or fashion tours and they're curious about the real estate in Nairobi. And it's interesting because the narrative in the West, as we like to say, is that Africa is poor and dusty. And so people will come to Nairobi and be shocked that, you can pay upwards of $1,000 USD for an apartment, depending upon how you want to live and where you want to live. And I don't want to paint the picture that you need to be moneyed up to live here, because for the digital nomad visa, I believe you need to show that you have an income of $20,000 annually, which is easy for an American to show. right? You can get a place in Nairobi for $250 a month. But then you have to look at, okay, what amenities are near you? Will you be living on a dirt road? Are you okay with that? Are you okay with living away from the city center? And by the way, just for assuredness, there's quite a few African Americans that are leading that lifestyle, living further out on much less. So my cost of living in the US as well as my income in the US was quite high. When I had my store in Washington, D.C., I want to say like 420,000 annually. That's revenue, right? That is not including my expenses. My take home, I would say, was quite high. However, my expenses were also very high. The cool thing is that I can say is we were able to put aside quite a bit for retirement, and we did have investment properties. I was married at the time. What I would say, just to be completely transparent, is trying to figure out a career path in a place where I couldn't work as a stylist has been an ongoing journey. I started out doing freelance writing in Zanzibar, and then that expanded into social media management. And now I'm doing the tours. Now I'm doing the Blackit consultations, relocations, etc. So just helping people get over here. And as an entrepreneur, I will be completely transparent. It's been up and down. And now I'm just in a place where I'm like, you know what? I need to hire a business coach so we can elevate. Have I found a supportive community of other expats in Kenya? Definitely. But I would say you have to be very choosy. You have to be very selective of your circle. Because coming here, unless you're coming with your family, you're rebuilding a network. And I find that because people feel like a fish out of water, they form these networks really quickly, and they tend to be very superficial. So I have taken my time to cultivate a community, and I'm really good in one-on-one situations. So, of course I do have Kenyan friends, but I also have friends who are not Kenyan. They're Africans from throughout the diaspora, and even not even from the continent. I do. Honestly, one of the things that I really love about being here is anonymity. There are certain places that I've lived where I was a novelty, and that's what drew people to me. The relative anonymity, being able to blend in, and people being accustomed to seeing foreigners means that I can move about and nobody's really trying to be in my space to get something from me. So I know that the relationships that I've built are actually genuine. I can't speak to people who don't have brown skin and what it's like, because you can see them from a mile away. But being in this skin, I definitely feel safe. And I'm from a big city, so I keep my city wits about me. I don't behave in Nairobi differently from how I would behave in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, DC. Is Kenya affordable for African Americans? I think so. I definitely think it is. The reason why I pause is because you have to figure out your income source. And I've had conversations with people who want to move to Africa, and they're like, maybe they might be a bus driver, or maybe they might be in a field that requires them to be on U.S. soil, and that part can be very tricky. I'm somebody who, even though I'm very particular, I'm also somebody who's just like, you know what, F it. I'm going to leave it all behind and just jump feet first into a situation. That's not everybody's personality type. So when I talk about I've had to figure things out, I really have. Fortunately, I'm doing what I love, which are the fashion art tours and also Blackitting. I do have a platform called Blackit Africa, and my sole purpose for launching this podcast is to encourage my people to come home. Whether you're somebody like myself that has been separated for centuries, or you're someone who's constantly born and you're making your coin in the global north, bring your resources home. So I love this, and I love also shifting people's paradigms about Africa. Going back to one of your questions about Nairobi and affordability, people are surprised to find out that Nairobi is actually one of the most expensive cities in Africa. And with the UN relocating its headquarters here, we can only expect those expenses to go up. My visa process in coming to Kenya was really easy. The first time I came was pre-COVID, and I believe I got a visa on arrival. After COVID, that's not the case. So there is an e-visa that you can get online before you come, and it's relatively simple. This is no longer a place where Americans can come and get visas on arrival. Sometimes the website is not working and you do need a connect, and that is one of the services that I provide. People usually start off with like a 90-day visa. Some people get the 5-year visa. There are people who get the retirement visa, people who do the digital nomad visa. There's so many different options. And then if you're not sure where you want to be, either Tanzania, Kenya, or Rwanda, there is the East African visa. It's really being away from loved ones. There are times where I really do miss my family, miss the protection that I have from the men in my family, because Kenya is a very patriarchal society. The world is patriarchal, but there's levels to the patriarchy. And sometimes I just find like, it would be great if my cousin was here, my male cousin. It would be great if my dad was here to handle business for me. I'm just being real. The other thing is just like hanging with my girls. When you have this lifestyle, this immigrant lifestyle or this expat lifestyle, you're making new friends. You're having to find new community, and the bonds take time to build. Sometimes those bonds are formed prematurely out of necessity, and when they're formed prematurely, they're not as strong. And then you end up realizing like, oh, this person actually isn't really a friend. They're just somebody that you can have a lot of fun with. So there are times when it's just like, I do miss like my aces. Would I ever move back to the US? Hard no. Right? I don't even have to hesitate on that. My lifestyle is better here, and there's less stress. And one of the common threads that we see with Africans returning, and not just those of us who were not born on the continent, but those who were born on the continent, is that you can relax. You're not othered here. It's familiar. And while living outside the continent gives you certain conveniences, there's one thing that you can't get beyond, and that is these caste systems, the racism, the tribalism. It's all the same thing, really. And one of the inconvenient truths about being here as an African American is that I don't have to get involved in the tribalism. That allows me to exhale. You know, just like Africans come into the States, you don't have to get involved in the BS tribalism or politics between, you know, ultra conservatives and black nationalists, whatever is happening. You can make your money and go about your business. You can go to school and go about your business. In fact, I found that in Kenya, some people have just told me in my comments, Auntie, stay out of it. Don't get involved in the politics. And I didn't come here to get involved in politics. What do I wish I knew before moving to Kenya? That Kenya was cold. Actually, Kenya's not cold because right now it's hot at the coast. That Nairobi gets cold. I'm fortunate that I had my girlfriend who lived upstairs and she was like, you're going to need some winter clothes. So I actually ended up ordering some things really quickly from abroad. I find that the shopping for ready to wear in Nairobi can be challenging in terms of cost and in terms of quality. The fashion tours are curated for my guests' preferences and styles, so they're not a one-size-fits-all approach. So if I have a client that is interested in crafts and home goods and local designers and fabrics, then we curate the tour based on their preferences. It's actually really fun for me to take people around, and it also includes lunch, which is a great way to just download with a client to see how they're enjoying it and really to build a rapport. The advice that I would give to someone who was thinking of relocating to Kenya is, I would say, figure out how you're going to make money first. And if at all possible, keep your sources of income in your passport country open. So if you have property, consider renting that property out. I always tell people that you need to figure out what your income source is going to be before you come here. So that could look like starting a business. However, you need to be here on the ground to do research before you do that. Or you need to have someone here on the ground do research for you. And that's something that I do offer. The other thing that I would say is hire someone to do a consultation for you to even figure out if Kenya is a good fit for you, because you really need to sit down and figure out what your non-negotiables are. And when I do my consultations, I give you a questionnaire that you have to complete before you submit payment. One of the questions I ask is, what are your non-negotiables? You might find that you prefer Johannesburg, Accra, Portugal, and I'm not going to sell people a fairy tale. One of the reasons why I'm in Nairobi specifically is because of infrastructure. My roots are in Central and West Africa. So there's a certain feeling that I get in West Africa where I definitely feel rooted. I definitely feel at home. And it's a different feeling in East Africa where it's not like I feel unwelcome, but my roots are not here. So I'm very realistic about why I'm in Kenya. And it's primarily the infrastructure versus me being in Cameroon, which is where my mother's people are from, or in Sierra Leone, which is where my dad's people are from. So for people who need fast internet, that's something that you need to consider, you know. For people who are not able-bodied, I hate to say it because I really want my people to be here, but Africa might not be for you, because trying to navigate spaces that are not conducive to wheelchairs will be very challenging. If there was something that I could say to my past self before coming to Africa, I would say, girl, don't get comfortable. You not finna stay here. There are bigger plans for you, and there's a wide, wide world out there waiting for you. My final message to people watching is that I want you to self-actualize, and you need to think about how you're going to do that. Are you able to do that in your passport country or where you are now? I'm not talking about making money. I'm not talking about accumulating property. I'm talking about being in a place where your soul feels at ease. And I would encourage you to check out Africa. Whether it's north, south, east, west, central, check it out. And unless you have that very adventurous personality type, where you can like sleep on the floor in an airport, or you don't need a whole lot of structure, I would say invest in a consultation and build a network before you come. At least just start making contacts with people on the ground before you come, so that you can have a softer landing.